Let's paint up more Marvel Crisis Protocol. This time I'm going to be painting up Punisher and Taskmaster from this set. In the box, you'll get instructions on how to put these miniatures together, along with a punch-out card here with a bunch of tokens, some team tactic cards. I will slow down over here so you can read the contents of the cards in the back. And then the character cards for both Punisher and Taskmaster. Like my Marvel Crisis Protocol starter set video, I'm going to be painting these up fairly quickly, starting out first with a zenithal highlight. I start with some black primer and I paint both these miniatures black all the way around with this black primer for starters. After that, I switch to white primer, or you can use white paint as well, and you're going to be painting the miniatures from a 45-degree angle from the top like this to give it nice, bright highlights on top and then darker shadows at the bottom. Let's start with Mr. Frank Castle, also known as the Punisher, the Vigilante from the Marvel Comics, one of my favorite characters. We'll start with some Crusader Skin speed paint, and this is going to go on all the flesh sections. This is the sleeveless version of the Punisher outfit, so you're going to be painting his entire arm with this color. What I decided to do though is he does look like he's wearing gloves. I'm going to leave those gloves white in the traditional look of the Punisher costume. He does have white gloves and white boots. I'm going to do it that way, and then I'm also going to be painting his face right here in this Crusader Skin color. In an effort not to make Punisher too monotone, I'm going to be using some dark wood speed paint to paint his satchels, his holsters, his straps, and also the bag that he is putting his right foot on at the bottom. On the box art, it shows all of this as basically black or gray, and I didn't really like that scheme. It's a little bit too flat. So adding a little bit of a dark brown to the scheme gives it a little bit more of an interesting look, and I think it really suits this miniature really well. When you're painting the bag, make sure to not get any of that paint onto his boots. You want to leave those boots white. Again, I'm going for the classic Punisher look. Besides his sleeveless top, I really kind of wanted him to be comic book accurate. Now for the Punisher's main color, Grim Black. These are going to go on basically everything else. When I paint around the boots, I'm very careful not to get it on the boots, and also around the brown straps. I make sure to steer clear of those. This model can be very easy to paint, but it is somewhat meticulous, especially if you're trying to avoid certain areas like I'm doing here. Otherwise, the rest of his outfit is basically black. I'm going to show you in this video segment here on where I painted them. Notice that I'm using a fairly broad pointed tip brush so that I can cover a lot of area at once. But later on, as I get closer to the areas of more detail, like the skull symbol in the middle of his vest, I'm going to slow down and use a smaller brush. But more on that later. When you're working on his gun, that is obviously going to be black as well. He's going to have white gloves, and that's where you really need to slow down. And as you're painting the gun, really kind of take your time when you get closer to his fingers and his hands. You do not want to get any of this black on his gloves. If you do, again, it's easy to erase it or paint with white later. Frank Castle has jet black hair, so we're going to be using this Grim Black speed paint on his head as well. I am then going to switch to a detailing brush and very carefully working the Grim Black speed paint right up against the lines of his skull symbol on his Kevlar vest. This same brush works really well to fill in the eye sockets of the skull as well. On this particular sculpt, Frank has a spare magazine on his left hand, and you'll want to paint that black being very careful to avoid the glove. I add a few additional details with acrylic gunmetal paint, and I apply it onto these two buckles on the model. Like my previous video, the bases are very simple to finish off. I just use some gray floyd gray speed paint. You'll need to water it down a little bit to make it runny, or you can use dark tone wash instead. Next, let's move on to Anthony Masters or Taskmaster. This model definitely has a lot more colors, so let's go through them right now. I start with broadsword silver speed paint, and this is going to go on his sword right here on the blade. I also use this silver speed paint on the entirety of the shield as well as on the back of the shield. I next switch to hardened leather speed paint. This is going to go in these areas, starting with his holster right here where he houses his pistol, and then also on all the various packs and belt around his waist. I also paint the sword scabbard on his left hip with this color. If you paint fully assembled like me, it's going to be a little bit hard to get color on every part of the scabbard, but do your best and try to reach in between the model to apply color to it. Whatever you can't see, you don't necessarily need to paint. The two straps on the back of the shield also get this brown. And this strap in front of his chest also gets the hardened leather speed paint. Next, let's use maize yellow. This is going to be a lighter color of yellow, and it's going to be one of the two main colors for Taskmaster. It's going to go on the back of his cloak. Leave the front of the cloak completely white. Be careful not to let it spill over to the other side. If it does, again, just kind of clean it with a damp, clean paintbrush to remove whatever mistakes you make. This yellow also goes on this tiny area on the top of his vest and on these bicep areas of Taskmaster's arms, being sure to put yellow all the way around the arm. On the shield, you can use the maize yellow like I'm using right here, or if you want it to be a little bit more pronounced, you can use regular acrylic yellow too to fill in this area of the shield with some yellow color. I use glittering loose speed paint in only one area, which is the hilt and pommel of the sword. Moving on to blood red speed paint, I use a detailing brush and apply it into the eye sockets for Taskmaster. I then use magic blue for the main color for Taskmaster, and this is going to go in these following areas of the model. It starts by going onto the pants right here. You're going to have to be careful around the brown areas, and also his boots. You'll want to keep those white. We're going to be coming back later with a whitish color to put over that, so make sure to keep those as white as you can and correct any mistakes with a clean brush. Then you're going to go to the top area over here on his torso and fill in the blue in these areas that I'm showing. Again, being careful around his hood area. You want to keep that white. That is going to be a white color later on. You can also use this magic blue speed paint in these areas of his shield, basically the surround round area of the shield, or you can use an acrylic blue color if you want it more vivid. You can finish off the top of the base with some watered down gray floor gray, or you can use dark toned wash right out of the bottle for the same effect. The last color I'm going to use is Blinding Light Speed Paint. You're wondering why I'm using this after everything else, and besides painting all the white areas with this Blinding Light Speed Paint, which is a great effect, it is also opaque enough that you can actually touch up a lot of mistakes with it. Just lay it on a little bit thicker in the areas where you may have had paint overflow or so on. Make sure it's dry before you do it, and this paint should be able to cover up mistakes. That's the reason why I did this as the last step. It cleans up any overpaint that I may have done earlier, so it not only paints up the white areas, but it also corrects anything I might have done wrong. As a finishing touch, I use some Grim Black speed paint in just a few areas. I apply it onto his pistol right here, and I also apply it into the shadowy areas of his hood here just to make him look more menacing. I then use gunmetal acrylic paint and I apply it onto the center circle of his belt right here, and then once it's dry, I apply some pure red acrylic paint on this tiny symbol right in the middle, and now Taskmaster is done. As a final step for both models, I use some black primer and just clean up the rims of the bases like this. I protect everything with 2 coats of matte clear varnish, and at this point, everything is all done. Here is Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, on a 360-degree pedestal, followed by Taskmaster. Thank you for watching this short video, and I hope it helps you paint up this kit nice and fast. Enjoy your next game of Marvel Crisis Protocol, and I will see you in the next video.